Hey guys, and welcome back to another Parliament Games video. My name is Adam, and today we're going to do our Retro Runback video featuring Ggamu, Gallade Gardevoir, Azelf, Mesprit, and Uxie Level X. Now, just like in Dialga Chomp, we went back in time and looked at a list that, over the last 12 years has been completely modified and changed. Gallade Gardevoir, or Ggamu in this case, has something that, just as the original, has definitely changed and evolved. Way back when, this list actually very slightly similar, but not fully equipped, as in the Mesprit Level X and the Uxie Level X in most cases, was based around just the Gardevoir and the Gallade itself. Now, this deck was able to make second place at Worlds, piloted by Michael Pramawat, and under the name of Boltivar. Also ran a few techs like Stormfront Machamp, using Takeout to knock out the opponent's basic Pokemons. And this was especially prevalent in a completely almost SP meta, and there was evolutions here and there, of course, but Machamp with a 1-0-1 line and the old Rare Candy rules. Along with this, it used Dusknoir. Now, that's not the video we're going to go over today, but a fantastic list and an ode to an almost 12-year-old deck that could still stand the test of time. Starting off from the top is our Gardevoir Level X with its special teleportation ability. Now, this is an incredible linchpin in how this deck performs, allowing you to swap your active and your bench, specifically with this Gardevoir. But and its bring down attack is just another tool, and you'll get to see that all of these psychic attacking Pokemon just have this incredible synergy. And we're gonna go into the most prevalent attack in the deck. Well, actually, the most prevalent Pokemon. Period. Telepass. One of those reasons that breaks the game, that allows you to use two supporter cards. This one would pull an effect from their discard pile, so you could play your own. So let's say you have your Pokemon Collector in hand, you use that to get some extra basics, and then use their Bebe search to put something back and Rare Candy into another Gardevoir. Now, Telepass was only one of the reasons that this card was, if not the best, and still to this day tied for first in most cases, but Psychic Lock kept your opponent's Pokemon Poke Powers out of the game. Now, the damage wasn't the most, but at this time weakness was different, and one Gardevoir could not OKO the other Gardevoir, which was really nice. But if you add an Expert Belt in this case, this Psychic Lock starts to hit for 80 damage, which would then do the plus 30 weakness and knock out an opposing Gardevoir. The double colorless requirement and one Psychic was always something that made a turn 2 Psychic Lock one of the scariest attacks in the format. And this Gardevoir, we only run 2 of, plus one of the Level X. Now let's check out this next one. Now, this Gardevoir was something that was added years later as a ability to manipulate. As often as you like during your turn, before you attack, you may move a Psychic Energy attached to one of your bench Pokemon to your active Pokemon. This made it so that Gardevoir could synergize well with the Spirit of the Lakes attacks, and allowed you keep energy in play. But it made it so that when one Pokemon would be, knocked out or switched to the active using the Level X, that energy effectively stayed in play. Energy Burst was also a fantastic attack. Psychic Protection did not see much play, but was usable, specifically because of the double colorless energy. One of the other big knockout cards of the deck is Gallade. Using the Sonic Blade is a fantastic attack to go back to, using the Gardevoir Level X's Bring Down. Brings it down to 50 HP, and then if you're doing your game right, Sonic Blade would knock it out. Psychic Cut, though, was the premier attack for this Pokemon. If you flip over all 6 of your prize cards, Psychic Cut could do 160 damage. Now, this card, while doing 180 damage, 180 damage is incredible. In a one prize format, that makes this almost a one-time use. If you play it well, 2 uses is where it's at. But there became Pokemon as the format evolved. Like, as I mentioned before, Dialga Chomp could require you to almost hit 200 damage to knock that Pokemon out. Gallade just doesn't hold up to it, while still incredibly useful, though, for the I mean, this Pokemon literally just without flipping a prize cards one-shots all of your opponents. Oh man, with Luxray level X's. So moving on, we have two Kirlias. This is one of my favorite Kirlias personally, just because it has the teleportation burst, getting it out of the active, and it has an okay energy requirement. This Ralts will make or break games. Future Sight is an incredible attack at 0 cost, something that the Pokemon is actually bringing back, which is really nice. Alright, so we have Azelf level X and 2 Azelfs. Now going over these, each Psychic Pokemon has no weakness. Great for the Mirror, great for the Curse Guard matchup, and several other. Deep Balance is actually really good too. For decks that use a vast amount of energy, Deep Balance could put a lot of damage counters on one specific target, kind of like Steelix or, I mean, there's several to name. Azelf, Time Walk, obviously search your prizes. Put this onto the bench, but like we said in Dialga-Chomp, it became kind of a liability. In this format, though, luckily there was several Azelfs. Now, this Azelf is actually my favorite, one of the spirits. We'll mention the other ones. This makes it so that your opponent's Pokemon, like Dialga, Garchomp, I mean anything at basic, as long as you have each of these in play, which substantially one Pokemon collector grabs you all 3 of them, the Downer Material ability will kick into effect. This makes it so much more difficult for your opponent to effectively just attack. It's actually crazy how strong this is. Bind Pulse is actually also a fantastic card, keeping some specific energy style decks out of the not out of the format, but out of its ability to play the game. Mesprit level X. Again, this is the M in AMU, but Supreme Blast. Both of these attacks, again, fantastic. There's not a I can't understate how useful everything in this deck was. But if you don't have Uxie level X and Azelf level X in play, this attack does nothing. Discard all energy attached to Mesprit. 200 damage is kind of the magic number. Now in several formats, 200 damage has always been just this ridiculous amount that will for sure usually knock out just about everything in play. I think the only thing this won't considerably knock out might be a fully loaded Steelix, but I could be very wrong. If not, then someone comment below and let me know. The Healing Look is also a fantastic ability. There's some spread style decks that specifically it counters. Mesprit, just like before with a Psychic Lock, Mesprit allows a Psychic Bind that could be played turn 1, because usually you're not going to get the Psychic Lock initially. You play this Mesprit down, you'll basically stop your opponent from using their powers, Uxies to get set up, anything that allows them to continue to play, and then along with the Psychic Lock, you'll basically continue to build the lock in steps. Extrasensory is an okay attack. Will knock out a Uxie or anything with a Psychic weakness if you're hitting for that clean 70. And then, as I mentioned in the last video, Uxie level X, Zen Blade, and Trade-Off. Some of the most useful card, or one of the most useful cards ever printed to be on a tech that is already strong in its own way. So 2 copies of the Uxie. Setup, once during your turn we put Uxie from your hand, you draw until 7. In Standard right now, they still haven't even been able to come close to this power level. Crobat V, 6 for 2 prizes, and they kept some of the attacks similar, which is nice, but that's just what they had to tone down over time. 1 Spiritomb in the deck, always starting with Darkness Grace, is not a bad thing. This deck does rely on quite a few of evolving Pokemon. Keystone Seal keeps your opponent from using trainers or both trainers to play, but you'll see that we actually don't run an incredibly high trainer count. The Unknown Guard and the Unknown Q, one-ofs in most decks in this format, help retreat, help stop effects of opponents' attacks. And so the whole, again, from the very beginning, is you want to be able to attach all of your energy. Now, what's important about this deck is that you can only level X while a Pokemon is in the active. Mesprit, Uxie, Azelf, Gardevoir. That's a lot to do for, even in one game. Assuming you're not already taking a ton of prizes using Psychic Lock or Psychic Cut. The teleportation by the Gardevoir level X allows you to get Pokemon in and out of the active, like I said before. Why this is important is because you want to be getting each of the spirits out into the active and level Xing it. Now, as we mentioned, let's see. The Azelf gives a free retreat cost, you're right, and then basically you're spending the majority of the game to build up a late game attacker with the Mesprit, so that if your opponent does bring up a potential threat, you'll have used enough teleportations to cause a Supreme Blast to be built up on the bench, and hopefully you don't have to successfully do this more than once, but it is one big large attack. To keep the consistency of the deck. Now, there's different versions of this, obviously, but this is just the one I've been playing. 2 Expert Belts help you crank out that damage just a little bit more. This is make sure if there was anything I said earlier that Mesprit can't knock out, Expert Belt will help you do the job. Pokemon Communication of 4 count. You have so many individual Pokemon, all of these level X's, special techs, different versions. 2 Night Maintenance. You got to be able to put those back into the deck. Again, there's just so much. One thing kind of falls. The deck does not falter, which is really nice. It can keep the pressure on, especially under Psychic Lock. 2 Warp Point. On turns that when your Gardevoir's teleportation isn't enough to get yourself out of the active, helping play this to accelerate how many level X's you can get down into play is always helpful. Rare Candy, 4 of, just because this Gardevoir is just that important. Being able to use Telepass when you need it, or several times a turn, along with getting a Psychic Cut Gallade out and into the battle just as fast as possible. Cynthia's Feelings here is really nice, because sometimes you will have turns where you will have wished you could have had a supporter that was going to get you 8 cards. You will have things knocked out. Again, this was a single price format when Expert Belt wasn't in play. 2 copies of Pokemon Collector. Now, I'm not going to say this is my favorite addition or favorite change to this deck, but I do think that if I were to make some additions, I would definitely want to run a higher count. Roseanne's, similar to Pokemon Collector, I wish maybe some more, but one of my favorite cards in the deck was Judge. Now, a lot of people who played back then knew that when one SP deck would play a Cyrus Conspiracy, it would basically set them up to consecutively play whatever supporter they wanted, which usually was another Cyrus Conspiracy, but it allowed them to play a game that you weren't able to search for. Judge would break that chain, and in this format, you would judge them and then telepass them into a bigger hand, maybe off their, Professor Oak's New Theory, or use their collector, you name it. Bebe Search, again, we're looking for a lot of Pokemon in the deck that are individuals. We have to find the Uxie level X's, Azelf, you name it. Moonlight Stadium was probably the best Psychic Stadium in the format, used by Gardevoir, Kurskar. I mean, even in 2009, it was very prevalent. As I mentioned before, most of the Pokemon in this deck, which is so nice, also rely on Double Colorless Energy. Reprinted in HCSS, this card just changed the way 2010 was played from then on out. And then a basic count of 7 energies. I do like this list a lot. It does have its times where decks will clunk, and there is a lot of setup involved and required to this. Whereas, like I said previously, the Algachomp is allowed to just instantly deafen almost, and if not deafen by turn 2, where your Psychic Lock is just a little less an immediate of a threat. But yeah, guys, this was a GGAMU. Basically the second best, if not best, depending on who you are, deck of the 2010 format, or modern retro, as we said. And yeah, if you guys liked the video, leave a comment, something, we'll say I was here, or unknown P for Parliament Games. Yeah, as always, thank you for checking it out, and we love you. Bye-bye.